All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Teachers Podcast. Now, of course, this is organized by the Student Council, but today and every episode will be all about the teachers. And my name is Frederick Renes. Honored here to be your first ever host for this podcast. I'm joined here today by Mr. Josh. Hello, Mr. Josh.
Hello, I'm very excited and delighted to be here.
Yes, thank you. So obviously you are a new teacher, and I guess the students in your class who've been taught by you, we know quite a lot already about you, but to the students and maybe other teachers who haven't really got around to talk to you much, would you care to introduce yourself for a bit less than around 30 seconds? You can tell us anything about yourself, hobby, your family, even small random details.
Yeah, okay, so 30 seconds. So I'm trying to figure out what's important to tell 30 seconds. Well, I'm not Indonesian, in case that wasn't already clear. I'm from the States. I'm from a place called Kentucky that most of you have heard of because of my shtick is Kentucky Fried Chicken. A little bit about me. I am the kind of guy that will just, when asked if I want to travel halfway across the world and teach in a country and school and curriculum that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm just like, well, sure, sounds like an adventure.
I think you made that obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love flannels. That's something that you guys might not know about me, because I can't really wear them in Indonesia. I guess I'm trying to think that the ways that people would describe me, I guess spontaneous, and relational. And so very big about good conversations and friendships and things like that. So I also teach psychology and Bible, two of my favorite subjects. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm sure you're going to learn more about me as we continue with this podcast.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I know this is quite early for a very important, serious question, but yeah, we're getting one. Are you ready? It's very important.
Oh yeah, I was born ready.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 5, how are you doing today?
Oh wow, that's quite an excellent question. I'm gonna put today. So this podcast automatically bumps me up a couple notches. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm doing something. This kind of thing is like. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was talking about how I was asking what are things that you enjoy doing that no matter your circumstances you're always down to do. And for me, one of those things is long conversations with people. So because of that, I'm gonna put myself at a 4. It would not be. It would. The only reason that it's not a 5 is because, as you guys might be aware, being a new teacher means that you're doing about twice the work. So a lot of lesson planning and getting curriculum figured out and learning new things like I've learned how to write a paper in college, but didn't get as much experience grading papers. So that would be a thing that would decrease the score. And the only other thing is I didn't get as much sleep last night as I would have liked to, but which is quite hypocritical of me, considering I always ask my students how many hours of sleep did you get?
You do.
Yeah, I'm gonna put myself at a 4 though, because of the reason I expressed earlier. This right here is something I really enjoy.
Okay, I'm really happy to hear that, and I hope today continues to be a 4, or even something might happen and I can elevate to a 5. And yeah, I hope also this week continues to be in that area for you, that level.
Yeah, no, I hope so too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So thinking about this, I remember the first time seeing you or meeting you in class. Um, I guess similar to every thought I have with any other expat teachers, they must be onto something when they actually decide to travel. You've mentioned this earlier, halfway across the world. I don't know if that's the exact distance, but it sure that sounds very far.
Yeah.
To teach here in Indonesia. So take me through that whole decision-making process, where you had to consider the good and the bad. Obviously, there's both. And then
Yeah.
why did you choose Indonesia out of all the country, and just why teaching abroad in general?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I believe that halfway across the world is about as accurate as you can get, considering that some of my friends in the States, it's a 12-hour time difference when calling them. So I've learned that I have a new favorite joke, which is when I'm asking people where I'm from, I can just point straight down, because that's more accurate. Just go straight to the earth. But to answer your question, I'm gonna try to hope I can answer this without taking up too much time.
That's okay.
But so I actually did not have a particular inclination towards teaching abroad when I was doing my master's program. So I graduated high school. I went to Covenant College. Covenant College's connections with UPH. And I got a 4-year degree there. Also, Covenant College is an excellent college option for those of you who are interested in a great experience, but you can talk about that later. After Covenant, I had this decision to make. I was a psych major with a minor in youth ministry, and I had 2 options. I could either pursue teaching, or I could pursue youth ministry. And the idea of pursuing teaching was a pretty new idea for me.
See.
And I did not decide that. I did not decide I wanted to make it an option until my junior year of high school. I ultimately ended up deciding on teaching for a couple reasons. But one of those was the main reasons. The main thing that I wanted was I wanted an opportunity to be in a position where I can build relationships with students. That's what I enjoy the most. And teaching is a career that gives me a qualification that can put me anywhere in the world. I cannot necessarily say that with a seminary degree. So I went with teaching. Again, wasn't thinking abroad at all, but I did have some pretty rough experiences with my teaching starting off. It wasn't that my teachers that I was under were particularly bad or anything like that. So student teaching, I'm sure you guys had were teachers how to learn from teachers, yeah. So my first semester, I had to teach 6th grade history. And you would think I'd be teaching psychology, but there weren't any available teachers in the area that could take me on that taught high school psychology. So I was teaching a content that was interesting, yeah, but it was very standards based, and I couldn't go very depth with the content, and I had to learn everything, and it was very draining for me not being able to teach content that I was passionate about. And then that really intensified the second semester when in my student teaching, I was teaching 8th grade history, but not just any history, but Georgia history, history of the state of Georgia. I did not grow up in Georgia, so I did not have Did not really have the expertise in Georgia history.
That's interesting.
And also I also just felt really burned down by the amount of content I had to cover, because it was Georgia throughout all of history, and there was 1 week where I had students came 2 days a week, and then 3 days were online. There was 1 week where I had to teach. I covered World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, the New Deal, 3 different Georgia politicians, and Pearl Harbor over the course of 3 days, because that was the only time I had, because students in the States aren't as diligent as you guys. They don't do work online. So that it's just like, it was everything, the content I was teaching was fundamentally against what I thought was important. And though the moments that I really enjoyed, the moments that gave me life, were the moments where I was just able to talk with the students for 5 minutes about how their amygdala affects their functioning of their brain and makes it more likely for them to be emotionally impulsive, and therefore it's not entirely their fault that they have a harder time controlling their emotions. Things like that. But 5 minutes and I was like, wow, like I could teach that just like the entire time. I would really enjoy that. So all this setup, it kind of is what was really important for me deciding to come to SPH. And then the other thing was I also, again, I found a lot of richness in the relationships I was able to build with students, but I was teaching in public schools, and so I was restricted in what I could say and how I could say it.
Right.
And I just realized I just have a heart for not just like any students, but specifically, I would say burnt out Christian students, to people who are in high school and are just kind of like feeling like struggling or wrestling with their faith, and being able to talk openly about that. So all these situations led to this motivation, this like idea of what I wanted to do. And suddenly I'm given this offer to come be at a virtual preview day for SPH. And through Covenant College, because we have connections.
Right.
And my answer was not interested. I was like, why would I try to go all the way across the world? Never been something I've been super.
Doesn't make sense, yeah. Yeah,
fascinated by. But Dr. Drexler, who's a professor who some people who've been with UPH know, he's worked with SPH, convinced me otherwise the day of. I showed up to the meeting, and there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. One was that this was a Christian school, and the idea of sharing the gospel being of prime importance. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then the second thing was the community aspects that I heard about, not just community between the expats, but also community with the teachers and the students, and that being a very vibrant part of the community.
Yep.
So here we have like the one core aspect of what I wanted, about relational community interaction. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, all right, you know what is the harm in just reaching out to them and seeing if they have any high school psychology positions open? So I did, and learned that SPH actually really needed a high school psychology teacher. To that point, I had found nothing anywhere close to teaching high school psychology. And I was working with one school, potentially teaching Bible and history there. But that was my dream job, was teaching high school psychology at a Christian school. And that is almost impossible to find anywhere else. So that was the initial spark. And then I felt like every conversation I had with a teacher or a staff member just further confirmed, like, wow, this place seems really cool. I had a great conversation with Mr. Chris about the spiritual life community at SPH. And I had a great conversation with some teachers at the Lippo Village. learning about just like not just the like the vibrant values, exciting adventures people get to go on while they're here. And at the same time, these other jobs that I was looking at were falling through. And it felt like, well, it just seems like all doors are leading to Indonesia. And so I would say, actually, though, I came here more so because I saw the specific job description was something that I had a passion for.
Okay.
And less a matter of like being in a new culture. But I also was like, the more I thought about the new culture thing, I was like, the more I was excited about it. Just because the inevitable ways that you're forced to learn if you're in a brand new culture.
Mm-hmm.
So that is eventually, yeah, all doors led to SPH, and it just made sense to continue moving forward with them, interview with them, got the job, and I was like, well, this seems like a God thing, and so I'm just gonna move forward. So there you go. That's the that's the mid-length version, I would say.
Okay. We maybe next time we'd have the time for a full story of that, but that pretty much sums it up. And I'm really glad it turned out that way. I was thinking, like, if you were to, just turn down one step, there might be a chance that, you aren't here at all. You wouldn't get to know about Indonesia, or you wouldn't be here right now doing this podcast. So I'm glad it turned out that way.
Yeah, I am too.
So, of course, the considerations part, it was only probably the first one. And I imagine it was quite difficult, what you said. But the second part to it is probably living it in, transitioning to Indonesia. So would you mind sharing us about the first time you got here, and the expectations, the food, the culture, the people, studying the language, anything about, in terms of settling in?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you ever move to a new culture, it forces you to inevitably grow in ways you never have, because you're forced to experience things that you've never experienced before. And experience a way of looking at the world I've had the experience a way of looking at the world that's completely different, or that has a lot of differences from the way I naturally view the world. Not because I'm right, but has way more to do with my cultural upbringing than just having a better understanding of facts and logic or things like that. So understanding that has helped me to just, I guess, broaden my understanding of the value in different ways of seeing things. But more specific in details. So yeah, when I first got here, right off the bat, I was really excited I was sad. I had left a lot of people very close and dear to me from back home. Yeah. But on the plane here, I ended up sitting down with a woman from Syria and hearing her story about fleeing persecution, and how the culture of Syria differed from the culture in the States, and how she was an art history professor, and she was getting a grant to study this really interesting story, and not in Indonesia. I forgot where she was going. Lebanon, maybe? I'm not sure. And then next to her was this guy from not Ukraine, but somewhere close, somewhere was the former Soviet Union.
Interesting.
And he had this story about being this police officer during full on Soviet Russia, being in charge, and the corruption that he had to deal with. He was the police chief, having to make exchanges with mafia leaders, and it's just I had no idea how to process that. I just know that's a very interesting story. Yeah. And there's something for me to learn from it. So I was kind of primed already coming here. And then when I got here, I think I just kind of went into autopilot mode of just like, okay, you know what, whatever I see or experience, I'm just gonna kind of be like, okay, that's how things are. It's definitely, I think it's definitely overwhelming. And I think one of the most overwhelming things is walking into a room and no one looking like you. And so also like by nature of no one looking like you, and you also being taller than a lot of people, you getting a lot of eyes directed towards your attention.
Right. Yeah.
Never, like that's such a strange, never had to even think about that. And then also the not knowing the language, obviously created a barrier because I've always valued just being able to have a really good conversation with a stranger, and suddenly I can't do that.
Yeah.
So quarantine was interesting because I kind of had to transition, because I had a 10-day quarantine when I got here. And that transition, I don't know if it was helpful or harmful, but it happened. A lot of it was just kind of like figuring out a lot of adjustments. I guess more of a slow change. First time I ever used the bidet. We don't have bidets in the United States, so that was like, wow, that's interesting. I think that you guys are doing it better here, honestly. They're way more efficient. Despite all of those changes, there's also been the communication barriers, the cultural value barriers, the fact that like when I was in the States, like I know where everything is, I know how to get there, I know like what I need to do, and here, like it was actually a pretty big thing for me taking a Grab for the first time by myself to visit Lippo this past weekend. So those are always obviously challenges, but I actually have, one thing I've realized is that people talk about like, oh, it's like, wow, it must be so difficult. It must be so difficult being acculturating to new culture. And I think that the way that I'm wired, I would actually argue that the most difficult thing has actually been transitioning to being a new teacher for me than it has been transitioning to a new culture. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I don't really have any sort of routine that I feel like I need to keep. I am very comfortable with things being unknown and just kind of figuring them out. But because I'm so comfortable with things being unknown, and because I'm so comfortable with lack of routine, the regular kind of methodological approach you have to do to keep up with all the specifics of teaching, that was more directly conflicting with weaknesses I might have with my personality. I have culturally, and both have gotten better, and I've had more, but I feel like I've overall had mostly really positive experiences with Indonesian culture, and people, and learning Bahasa. I can sort of have a broken conversation at this point now. And then also just like, I also remember being really impressed with the values of people here. In America, we are very individualistic. There are advantages to that, but there are also disadvantages. I think that, that's another thing I've thought about a lot. People here, I feel like do their job, and they do it well because it's their role and because they want to do it well to serve their community. I've been amazed at the level of service that the care that people put in what they do. Because in the States, we do things well, but when I was a server, it was do things well so that I can get as much money as possible and get out the door quickly to get home so I can go home. So I love that value of harmony has been something I've really appreciated, because we're fighting a lot. We fight a lot in the States. We like to do that. And here it's been a bit of a breathing room for that. So there you go. Those would be my ponderings on that.
I'm glad to hear that and how you can see that sort of harmony and the values we have straight off the bat without anyone telling, hey, this is how we do things here. That you can, really see it from the way we organize things, how we act, and how we appreciate each other. That's really great. And you've mentioned quite a lot of differences from here and back home, and that leads me to asking, what is, say, one thing that you really miss about home?
Oh yeah. I think it's being able to talk with the people that I'm close with in person. Yeah, I would say of all the things, that would be the thing that hits. That's the thing I miss the most. Yeah, because I have four friends back home that I would consider lifelong friends. So I got married, people who would stand at my wedding. And I stay in touch with them. I call all of them probably once a week or so. But yeah, just not being able to be in person with them is a pretty significant loss for me. And it's one of the reasons I've been thankful that we've been able to transition to hybrid.
Yeah.
So, and I've really loved and cherished the relationships I've been able to build here. I've found just a lot of really rich and joyful friendships and relationships here. But there is something about having like 5 years of history with somebody that can only occur with time. So that's the biggest thing I think that I miss the most. And that's the thing I look forward to most when I get home.
And I think being a people person, and especially the ones that you're really close to, the one you dearly love the most and miss the most. I know how that feels. I think pretty much we all do at some point of our lives. Last year, we had the quarantine. We couldn't see each other, talking only through the phone. And yeah, no real life interaction. So you've had that quarantine and then had this decision to move and take the risk of not having to see them in a very long time. So I'm really sorry about that, and I do hope that whenever we are allowed to travel again, that you can go back home and see them again and tell interesting, amazing stories that you have here.
Yeah, no, I definitely have plenty of stories to tell. And I actually, I think I will be able to visit home for Christmas, which would be really nice.
That's great. Yeah, Christmas, yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely a really significant thing. There's something about just being like face to face in person.
Yeah.
And seeing just seeing facial expressions. There's something I think we've learned to appreciate a richness of that we maybe didn't really appreciate as easily before all this craziness. So
yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, you said a lot about your friends, and I imagine you've got to make a whole lot of memories with them. And if you don't mind sharing one of your favorite memories with them, either childhood or teenage years, if you could tell us one of your favorite memories about them.
Okay, I'll do 2 memories.
And
So
I kind of
go on.
understand, like, whenever someone asks you that question, it's really hard to pick from because there are a lot. So think about the ones that you're probably more familiar with and ones that are easier to tell.
Yeah. I would say the first thing that came to mind was my friend Daniel. He's this is the guy that we were camp counselors together. Our first day as camp counselors, one of our campers, very first day, one of our campers threw up in his bed, and we had to work together in the middle of the night to clean it up. And just from then on, we became very close friends. And we roomed with each other my senior year of college. And that was probably my favorite rooming experience I've ever had. We lived in a house with 6 other guys. It's not a very big house too, so 8 total. But it was really fun. And one of my best memories with him was we were both really tired. We were finishing our senior year. We had this thing called a senior thesis paper it's basically an EE, just double the length. We had this dance. There's this dance coming up. It's called Kilter at Covenant College. It's Kilter it's a Sadie Hawkins dance, meaning girls ask guys. And every year beforehand, I had ended up having someone ask me, and I had a rule. I would always say yes, but always like something happened on those Kilter dates that just made it awkward or made it like a little uneasy or uncomfortable. That year I was like, okay, I'm just going to commit myself. I'm not going to go with a girl. I'm just going to go with my friends. I'm just going to go with friends. But I held it really loosely, and we had gone home. We fell asleep, and we woke up, and dance had started like 30 minutes ago, which is okay. We have rubber time in the States when it comes to dances. You always show up at least 30 minutes late to a dance. So you're gonna be an hour late, be fine. But we didn't have a costume. It's a theme dance, and the theme was Quest for a Home. And so it was a Quest Kilter. That was the theme. And so something about going on a quest. What can we do? What do we have available here? We looked around and we saw that we had some duct tape, we had some random things, we had some tattered clothes, and we were like, oh, let's just be hobos. And we dressed up as hobos, and we had quite good costumes actually. And we were joint hobos on a quest for a home. And we really just went all out with our costumes as much as we could. Showed up to the dance, and we didn't even dance that much. The dance was at a zoo. We just walked around and we hung out with each other, looked at animals, and it was the least pressure and the most fun I'd ever had at Kilter. And really, it was just a testament to Daniel was the kind of person where we could sit in a room and not talk for an hour and feel completely comfortable with one another. So that was the first one. But the second one would be a memory of my friend Avery. And this one really stuck out to me because it was a series of events where Avery was really interested in this girl at Covenant, and she said she was not interested in him. And then he was kind of stuck in this very awkward friend zone situation. He's very convinced that he was in love with this girl, and she was not really sure how she felt. And I just remember we would have regular walks late at night, typically after 11 p.m. And we just walk down across campus, very beautiful campus, by the way, down to the baseball fields through the night and just talk. And we would talk for like an hour, 2 hours. I would ask lots of questions, and I just got to hear his story unfold, every step of every the first despairing moment when he said no, to the confusion, to the acceptance that he needed to make sure he's pursuing God's will and not his own, and to the uncertainty, to wait a minute, maybe she does like me, to her realizing that she likes him all along, and to them eventually getting married.
Wow.
And I was a groomsman at Avery's wedding, and at the wedding, with the bridal party, I got to stand up and I got to tell the story of Avery and his emotions and his thoughts and his feelings from as I walked through him every step of the way with this girl. And she's an amazing girl, and they're one of the most godly couples that I know. That's
beautiful.
Yeah, so that was a really awesome kind of story. Also, I have a picture of our hobo costumes if you want to see it.
I'll enable the shared screen. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So this was us. So that's Daniel, and that's me. I think. So we just had some it was quite a fun adventure. Just kind of, let me see if I can find a good one. So yeah, there was us. That was me. We found our dirtiest clothing. And we just put bandanas on us. We found trash bags, put on our ankles.
Pretty good.
We found sticks, and then made these little cloth sack things. So yeah, it was just like a last minute costume, and it was the most fun I ever had to dance.
It worked. It definitely worked. Yeah. Well,
yeah, those would be the two main ones.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Two wonderful stories. I'm sure the first one was really fun going through all that. I hope most of us will also experience that. Dressing up and going to parties. I do hope we get to experience, students here get to experience that too. And the second story was just really beautiful and a nice twist there.